You didn't lose her because you weren't enough. You lost her because you forgot who you were, and right now she thinks you're broken, chasing, waiting. But what if I told you the silence you're in is not your weakness? It's your power. What if the moment you stopped explaining, stopped begging, stopped proving, is the exact moment she starts missing you? This isn't about getting her back. This is about becoming the man she regrets walking away from. Stay with me till the end, because one decision you make today can flip the entire story. Comment your location where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel. Your transformation starts now. When a relationship ends, most people make the same mistake. They react. They rush to explain, to convince, to prove their value. They believe that if they just say the right words, show enough emotion, or demonstrate enough pain, the other person will suddenly realize what they're losing. But psychology teaches us the opposite. Attraction and respect do not grow in emotional chaos. They grow in emotional stability. The moment you lose control of your reactions, you surrender your leverage. Walking away with strength is not about playing games. It's about refusing to let your emotions make decisions your future will have to pay for. Silence, when chosen consciously, is one of the most misunderstood forms of communication. People think silence means weakness, avoidance, or fear. In reality, silence can be a statement of self-mastery. When you stop chasing and stop explaining, you create a psychological vacuum. And the human mind hates empty space. She begins to replay conversations, reinterpret moments, and question her assumptions. Not because you begged her to, but because you gave her room to think. Absence forces reflection. Presence, when overused, creates emotional numbness. This is where philosophy enters the picture. Stoic thinkers understood that you cannot control how others feel, but you can always control how you respond. When you walk away calmly, you signal something rare. You value yourself more than the outcome. That quiet confidence communicates strength far louder than words ever could. It says, I am grounded. I will be fine either way. And paradoxically, that emotional independence is what often reignites interest. It's important to understand that walking away with strength does not mean shutting down emotionally or becoming cold. It means regulating yourself instead of outsourcing your self-worth to someone else's choices. You don't disappear out of spite, you step back out of respect for yourself. You allow your nervous system to settle. You let clarity replace panic. From that place, every future action becomes intentional rather than reactive. Another psychological truth is this: people rarely miss what feels predictable. When you are constantly available, constantly explaining, constantly trying to fix things, you become emotionally expected. When that pattern breaks, the mind notices. Your calm withdrawal disrupts the story she had about you, that you would always be there, always chasing, always trying. And disruption forces reevaluation. But the deepest shift happens internally. Walking away with strength realigns you with your identity. You stop asking, how do I get her back? And start asking, who am I becoming right now? That question changes everything. Because once your focus turns inward, your energy changes outward. You speak differently. You move differently. You think differently. And people feel that, even from a distance. So remember this: the goal is not to make her come back. The goal is to become so emotionally grounded that whether she comes back or not no longer defines you. And when you reach that point, you don't chase outcomes. You attract them. Once you've walked away with emotional control, the next mistake many people make is turning backward, replaying memories, rereading messages, and mentally negotiating with a past that no longer exists. But growth never happens by looking in the rearview mirror. Psychology tells us that attention is energy, and wherever you place your attention, you reinforce identity. When you obsess over what was, you stay psychologically anchored to the version of yourself that existed inside that relationship. Leveling up begins the moment you decide that your future deserves more focus than your past. Self-improvement is often misunderstood as a performance meant to provoke jealousy or regret. But real transformation isn't loud, it's consistent. It happens in routines no one sees: training your body, sharpening your mind, organizing your finances, expanding your social world. These changes compound quietly. And here's the irony: when improvement is genuine, it becomes visible without being advertised. People sense when someone is evolving because their posture changes, their speech becomes calmer, their presence feels grounded. Growth doesn't beg for attention, it attracts it. But there's also a deeper psychological layer at play. When someone leaves, they unconsciously expect you to remain the same, or worse, to decline. It reassures them that their decision was correct. But when you grow, you disrupt that internal narrative. She's forced to reconcile two conflicting ideas: the version of you she left behind and the version of you she now observes. Cognitive dissonance emerges, and with it doubt. Not because you tried to prove anything, but because your progress speaks for itself. Philosophically, this is about reclaiming agency. You stop outsourcing your motivation to her approval. Instead of asking, will this make her notice me? You ask, does this make me stronger, wiser, more disciplined? That shift is subtle, but it's transformative. It moves you from validation seeking to purpose-driven, and purpose is magnetic. Humans are naturally drawn to people who are moving somewhere with intention. Leveling up also reshapes your self-respect. When you invest in yourself daily, your standards rise automatically. You become less tolerant of emotional chaos, less willing to settle for inconsistency, less afraid of being alone. This inner stability is what creates genuine confidence, not arrogance, not bravado, but quiet certainty. And that kind of confidence changes how others respond to you, whether they intend to or not. Importantly, this process isn't about speed, it's about direction. Small, disciplined actions taken daily outperform dramatic bursts of motivation that fade quickly. Consistency rewires identity. You don't wake up one day transformed. You wake up one day realizing you no longer recognize the old version of yourself. And here's the final truth: the most powerful form of revenge is not proving someone wrong, it's proving yourself right. When you commit to leveling up without looking back, you don't just change how she sees you, you change how you see yourself. And once that happens, you're no longer chasing what left. You're building what deserves to stay. After you've learned how to walk away with emotional control and committed to leveling up without looking back, there's one final shift that determines whether the change lasts or collapses under pressure. That shift is reclaiming your identity. Most relationships don't fail because of a lack of love. They fail because one person slowly abandons their center. They compromise their values, silence their needs, and shrink their boundaries in the hope of keeping the connection alive. Over time, attraction erodes not because you cared too much, but because you stopped standing for something. Psychologically, identity is the anchor of behavior. When you don't know who you are or what you require, you become adaptable to the point of self-erasure. You tolerate mixed signals, emotional inconsistency, and disrespect not because you approve of them, but because you fear loss more than misalignment. Reclaiming your identity means reversing that equation. You begin to value alignment over attachment. You choose self-respect over emotional convenience. This is where standards come in. Standards are not ultimatums, they are filters. They determine what you allow into your life and what you walk away from without drama. When your standards are clear, your behavior becomes predictable in the healthiest way possible. You don't argue endlessly. You don't over-explain. You simply observe, decide, and act. That calm decisiveness communicates emotional maturity. It tells others that access to you is earned, not guaranteed. From a philosophical perspective, this is the difference between being driven by fear and being guided by principle. Fear asks, what if I lose her? Principle asks, what kind of life am I building? When principle leads, relationships stop being the source of your identity and start becoming a reflection of it. You're no longer trying to be chosen, you're choosing. And that internal shift is deeply felt by the people around you. Reclaiming your identity also restores polarity. Attraction thrives when two whole individuals meet, not when one person abandons themselves to be accepted by the other. When you have your own mission, routines, and values, you bring energy into a relationship rather than draining it. You become someone who adds depth, not dependency. And paradoxically, the less you need someone to complete you, the more complete you appear to them. What often surprises people is that once you fully reclaim your identity, you may no longer want the same relationship you were fighting to save. Your standards rise, your clarity sharpens, and your tolerance for emotional confusion disappears. If she returns, it's not to the old version of you. It's to someone new, someone grounded, self-directed, and no longer available on terms that compromise their worth. And that leads to the final truth. When you stop trying to earn love and start living in alignment with who you are, you don't just change the dynamic, you transcend it. Because the most powerful position you can ever occupy is not being wanted, but being unwavering in your self-respect.